The ancient promise. The crystalline spires of Meridian Colony glittered in the twin suns of the Altair system, their surfaces refracting light in dazzling patterns across the settlement below. For 2 centuries, the Meridians, a species of graceful four-armed beings with iridescent skin, had built their civilization on this resource-rich world, far from the political entanglements of the galactic core. Commander Lyra pressed her primary hands against the cold stone wall of the ancient bunker, fingers tracing symbols etched into the surface by the colony's founders. The distant sound of orbital bombardment shook dust from the ceiling as the Vorith warships continued their methodical destruction of everything on the surface. 3 days, she whispered, her secondary hands clenched in frustration. 3 days of relentless attacks, and our defense fleet is gone. Behind her, the colony's governing council huddled around emergency lighting, their normally vibrant skin dulled to a sickly gray in the dim illumination. Elder Soren, his frame bent with age, stepped forward. "There is one option we haven't considered," he said, his voice barely audible over the rumbling from above. "The Earth Beacon." A heavy silence fell over the group. Counselor Teth was the first to object. "Earth? The humans haven't responded to any communication in over 300 years. Most believe they've abandoned the stars entirely." "Yet the beacon remains," Soren countered, moving toward a sealed compartment embedded in the bunker's far wall. "Our founders insisted it never be removed, even when all other ties with Earth were severed." Lyra watched as the elder pressed his palm against the compartment's surface. It recognized his genetic signature and slid open, revealing a device unlike anything in modern Meridian technology, angular, utilitarian, built with materials that had withstood centuries without degradation. "The Defense Pact," Soren explained, carefully lifting the beacon. "In the early days of our settlement, before the Galactic Alliance formed, Earth offered protection to dozens of newly established colonies, including ours. Why would they honor a pact from centuries ago?" Teth demanded. "And even if they did, what could Earth possibly do against the Vorith Empire? They've conquered 17 systems in the past decade alone." Soren's eyes reflected the dim emergency lights. The stories say Earth's war machines were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. That's why they sealed them away, why they retreated from galactic affairs. Not weakness, restraint. Another impact rocked the bunker. Chunks of ceiling crashed down, narrowly missing the huddled civilians. "We have nothing to lose," Lyra decided, taking the beacon from Soren's hands. "Show me how to activate it." The elder guided her through the sequence, the device humming to life under her touch. A soft blue light emanated from its core, pulsing gently at first, then with increasing urgency as it tapped into buried power networks that had lain dormant for centuries. "The signal must pass through the old relay network," Soren explained. "If enough of those ancient stations still function, the message will reach Earth." Lyra watched the beacon pulse. "And if Earth receives it, will they remember us? Will they care?" Soren had no answer as the signal burst outward, traveling faster than light through forgotten pathways scattered across the vast emptiness between stars. Colonel Diane Chen was midway through her morning coffee when every alarm in Earth Defense Command headquarters began blaring simultaneously. 20 years in the Unified Defense Forces had trained her to respond instantly to emergencies, but nothing in her experience explained the sight that greeted her as she sprinted into the monitoring center. Systems that had been dormant for centuries were lighting up across the board. Authentication requests flashed on primary screens. Dormant defense satellites were powering up in orbit. On Mars, Europa, and throughout the asteroid belt, long-sealed facilities were initiating automated protocols. "What the hell is happening?" she demanded, watching technicians frantically trying to gain control of the cascading activations. Lieutenant Commander Jackson looked up from his console, face pale with shock. "Ma'am, we're detecting a signal through the old Alliance network. It's triggering the war reserve." Chen felt the coffee cup slip from her fingers. The war reserve was practically mythological. The sealed weapons and ships created during Earth's brief but intense period of galactic expansion, before the unification treaties had pulled humanity back to the solar system. "That's impossible," she said, even as the evidence mounted on screens all around her. "Those systems were decommissioned centuries ago. The activation codes were sealed by the Global Council." "The codes were sealed, ma'am," Jackson confirmed, "but the systems were never dismantled. The treaties simply forbade humans from using them. They never mentioned automated responses." Chen stared at the main display as data streamed in. "Where is the signal coming from?" "Altera system. Specifically, a colony world called Meridian. The signal carries authentication markers dating back to the pre-unification defense packs." "We need to contact the Council immediately," Chen ordered, then paused as new alerts flashed across the screens. "What now?" Jackson's voice dropped to a horrified whisper. "The first response fleet has initiated launch sequence from the Mars depot. 6 destroyer-class vessels and their support craft. The automated protocols are deploying them to Meridian." "Override it," Chen snapped. "I can't," Jackson said, fingers flying across the interface. "These systems operate on authentication protocols none of us have clearance for. They were designed to function independently of human interference." Chen watched as the sealed hangar doors on Mars' surface slid open for the first time in centuries, revealing the sleek, predatory shapes of ships designed for one purpose only: war. "Find me someone who understands these systems," she ordered. "There must be records, specialists, someone who can help us regain control before." "Before what?" Jackson asked, looking up at her with dread. Chen had studied the classified historical records as part of her officer training. She knew exactly what lurked in those sealed depots. Before Earth accidentally declares war on whoever is attacking Meridian Colony, Dr. Emil Rostov had never expected to see his access codes work again. At 87, the former lead engineer for the Alliance Defense Initiative had spent the last 50 years as a historical consultant, occasionally lecturing at the Academy about technologies that most considered theoretical or mythical. Yet here he was, being escorted through security checkpoints deep beneath the Olympus Mons facility on Mars, his ancient authorization credentials suddenly the most valuable thing in the solar system. "The first response fleet deployed automatically?" he asked the young officer guiding him through the facility. "Without any human authorization?" "Yes, sir," she confirmed. 6 destroyers and their support vessels launched 17 hours ago. They'll reach the Altera system in another 18 hours. Rostov nodded grimly. "The system is functioning exactly as designed then. Immediate, overwhelming response to any authenticated distress call from a protected colony." They entered the main control chamber, a vast room filled with interfaces that had been considered advanced 3 centuries ago. Colonel Chen strode forward to meet them. "Dr. Rostov, thank you for coming so quickly. We need to understand exactly what capabilities have been deployed and how to regain control of the systems." Rostov moved to the central console, his fingers remembering codes and sequences from a lifetime ago. The interfaces responded to his touch, displays shifting to show information the regular operators couldn't access. "The first response is just what the name implies, a rapid reaction force," he explained, "designed to arrive quickly and secure the immediate area. But that's only the beginning." Chen frowned. "What do you mean?" "The entire system operates on escalation protocols," Rostov said, his voice heavy with implication. "If the first response encounters significant opposition, anything beyond the capability of 6 destroyers to handle, it automatically triggers the deployment of the main battle groups." The colonel's face paled. "And those are?" Rostov pulled up schematics on the main display. Massive vessels, kilometers long, bristling with weapon systems that made modern defense platforms look like toys. Dreadnoughts, 12 of them with full support fleets, carrying weapons designed to end civilizations, Colonel. Planet killers. "We need to stop this," Chen said firmly. "Can you recall the first response fleet?" Rostov shook his head. "Not from here. The system was deliberately designed to prevent remote interference once deployed. The only way to assert control is on-site, with command authorization. He tapped his temple, which I still have, locked in here. Then we need to get you to Meridian, Chen decided, before this escalates any further. As if responding to her words, new alerts flashed across the screens. Rostov's eyes widened as he read the incoming data. Too late, he whispered. The Meridian colony is under attack by the Vorith Empire. 27 capital ships have just arrived in the system. He looked up at Chen, his expression grave. The escalation protocols have already activated. The main battle groups are preparing to launch. Elder Soren stood with Commander Lyra at the observation post, watching as the night sky above Meridian turned into a canvas of destruction. The 6 Earth vessels, sleek, angular predators that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, moved with impossible precision, their weapons slicing through Vorith shields as if they weren't there. I've never seen technology like this, Lyra whispered, watching as another Vorith cruiser split apart under the precise attack. These ships are centuries old, yet they outclass anything in the modern Vorith fleet. Soren nodded slowly. The legend said Earth's war machines were terrible to behold. That's why they locked them away, why they withdrew from galactic affairs. Not because they were weak, but because they were too powerful, Lyra finished. Their attention shifted as a small craft detached from one of the Earth destroyers, descending through the atmosphere toward their position. Unlike the Vorith shuttles with their harsh angles and glowing drive cores, this vessel moved silently, almost invisible against the night sky, until it settled gently on the ground before them. A seam appeared in its smooth hull, widening into a doorway. A figure emerged, bipedal, encased in a form-fitting suit that revealed only a face with features that matched the ancient descriptions of humans. 2 forward-facing eyes, a single mouth, and skin in varying shades of brown. The human raised an empty hand in what Soren recognized as a peaceful greeting gesture. I am Lieutenant Commander Reyes of Earth Response Fleet, the human said, voice translating through an unseen device. We received your distress call and have engaged the hostile forces in orbit. Lyra stepped forward, all 4 hands extended in the Meridian gesture of gratitude. We thank you for your assistance, Commander. I am Lyra, Defense Coordinator for Meridian Colony. The human's expression remained neutral. I must inform you that this is only the preliminary response. Our sensors indicate a large hostile fleet has entered the system. Additional Earth forces have been automatically dispatched and will arrive within 12 hours. Soren felt a chill run down his spine. Additional forces. How many? The full Altair defense group. Reyes answered matter-of-factly. 12 dreadnoughts and their support fleets. Lyra exchanged alarmed glances with Soren. That seems excessive for the remaining Vorith forces. The human's expression didn't change. The response is proportional to the threat assessment. The Vorith Empire has conquered 17 systems in the past decade. The automated protocols have designated them as a Class 1 threat to protected colonies. And what does that designation mean? Soren asked, suddenly afraid of the answer. Commander Reyes looked up at the sky, where the battle continued to rage. It means the Dreadnought fleet will deploy with full Judgment-class weapons authorization. Unless countermanded by appropriate command personnel, they will systematically eliminate all Vorith military capabilities. In this system, Lyra asked. In all systems, Reyes clarified. The Judgment Protocol is designed to neutralize existential threats at their source. Soren felt his blood run cold as he finally understood why Earth had sealed away its war machines and withdrawn from galactic affairs. They hadn't been protecting the galaxy from outside threats. They had been protecting the galaxy from themselves. Reckoning. Captain Dreth of the Vorith Imperial flagship Relentless Conquest watched in stunned disbelief as his forward battle group disintegrated under the Earth vessel's assault. 6 ships, just 6, had destroyed 15 of his most advanced cruisers without suffering any apparent damage. Impossible, he snarled, clawed hands gripping the command rail as the tactical display updated with more losses. These primitives disappeared from galactic affairs centuries ago. Their technology should be obsolete. His tactical officer, Commander Vex, approached cautiously. "Sir, we've analyzed their attack patterns. These vessels appear to be automated. No life signs detected. They're drone ships operating on sophisticated combat algorithms. Drones or not, I want them destroyed." Dreth roared. "Bring in the main battle fleet. I want every weapon focused on those Earth vessels." "Sir," Vex hesitated. The intelligence briefing indicated Earth withdrew from interstellar affairs due to internal political pressures. But these weapons, perhaps there was another reason. Dreth's anger faltered momentarily as he considered the implications. The Vorith Empire had conquered 17 systems in a decade-long expansion, meeting only token resistance. No civilization had dared challenge their military supremacy. Until now. It doesn't matter, he decided. The Emperor expects this system secured by the end of the standard month. We will crush these automated defenders and add Earth's forgotten technology to our arsenal. New alerts chimed across the command deck. "Sir," reported his sensor officer, "we're detecting unusual energy signatures at the system's edge. Something is arriving." Dreth turned toward the main view screen just as space itself seemed to fold. Massive vessels emerged from hyperspace, each one easily 5 times the size of his flagship. 12 behemoths arranged in perfect formation, their obsidian hulls absorbing sensor scans while smaller escort ships swarmed around them like predatory insects. For the first time in his distinguished military career, Captain Dreth felt genuine fear. Colonel Chen's transport raced toward the Altera system, pushing its experimental drive system beyond recommended limits. Dr. Rostov sat beside her, monitoring the unfolding situation through secure channels. Neither had spoken for several minutes after receiving confirmation that the dreadnought fleet had deployed. "How bad could it get?" Chen finally asked, breaking the heavy silence. Rostov didn't look up from his display. "The judgment protocol was designed as a final solution, Colonel. It doesn't just target military assets. It's programmed to systematically dismantle an enemy's ability to wage war." Meaning it will target the Vorith homeworld, their colonies, shipyards, manufacturing centers, anything that could potentially support military operations. The protocol is thorough and, he hesitated, permanent. Chen closed her eyes briefly. "We're talking about genocide." "That's why Earth sealed the systems away," Rostov confirmed. "After witnessing a judgment deployment against the Scourge Collective, our ancestors realized they'd created something too terrible to control. The unification treaties weren't just about pulling back to Sol, they were about ensuring these weapons would never be used again." A communication alert drew their attention. Lieutenant Commander Reyes appeared on the screen, standing alongside 2 alien beings, Meridians, Chen presumed. "Colonel, we've established contact with the Meridian leadership," Reyes reported. "The dreadnought fleet has arrived and engaged the Vorith battle group. The automated systems have initiated judgment protocol targeting sequence." "How long do we have?" Chen demanded. "The fleet commander estimates 8 hours before the cascade targeting is complete. Once locked, the dreadnoughts will deploy relativistic kill vehicles toward all identified Vorith military installations across their territory." "We'll arrive in 6 hours, Chen said. "Hold position and await our arrival. Do not allow the fleet to launch any strategic weapons." "Acknowledged, Colonel, but I should warn you, the automated systems are not designed to recognize countermands from anyone but authorized personnel from the original command structure." "That's why we brought Dr. Rostov," Chen replied. "His command codes are still valid." After the transmission ended, Rostov turned to Chen with a troubled expression. "My codes might stop the attack, but we need to consider the consequences. The Vorith have conquered 17 systems through military force. If we prevent their destruction, what happens to those conquered worlds?" Chen met his gaze steadily. "We find another solution, one that doesn't involve wiping an entire civilization from existence." The Meridian bunker had been converted into an impromptu command center, with Earth and Meridian representatives working side by side. Commander Lyra studied the tactical displays with a mixture of awe and horror as the Earth dreadnoughts methodically dismantled the Vorith fleet. "Their ships are retreating," she observed, watching as the surviving Vorith vessels attempted to escape the system. "They're being permitted to leave." Lieutenant Commander Reyes nodded. "The Judgment Protocol prioritizes strategic targets. It allows tactical retreats to conserve resources for the primary objective." Elder Soren approached, his normally calm demeanor shaken by what he'd witnessed. "And what happens once they've escaped?" "The dreadnoughts will complete their targeting sequence," Reyes explained clinically. "Then deploy autonomous weapons toward every identified Vorith military installation, manufacturing center, and government facility across their territory." "You're talking about the death of billions," Soren whispered. "The protocol doesn't target civilian population centers directly," Reyes clarified. "But the systemic collapse of infrastructure would indeed result in catastrophic casualties." Lyra turned to face the human directly. "Is there no way to stop this?" "A senior Earth delegation is en route," Reyes answered. "They may have the authority to countermand the protocol. However, I must emphasize that the Vorith Empire poses a significant threat to numerous worlds, including your own. The Judgment Protocol is functioning as designed, eliminating threats to protected colonies. By committing genocide," Soren said firmly, "which makes it no different from the Vorith conquests themselves." Reyes didn't respond immediately, his expression suggesting this perspective hadn't been considered by the automated systems. "I will relay your concerns to Colonel Chen when she arrives," he finally said. Captain Dreth stood on the bridge of his crippled flagship, watching as his once mighty armada scattered before the overwhelming force of the Earth fleet. Half his ships had been destroyed in the initial engagement. The remainder were fleeing toward the jump point, abandoning the invasion of Meridian. "Sir," Commander Vex reported, "we're detecting energy builds in the Earth vessels consistent with long-range weapon systems. They appear to be targeting coordinates throughout Vorith space, including the homeworld." Dreth sank into his command chair. "They mean to end us entirely." "Sir," Vex continued, "a small Earth vessel is requesting communication. They claim to have authority to negotiate." After a moment's hesitation, Dreth nodded. The view screen activated to show a human female in a formal uniform. "I am Colonel Chen of Earth Defense Command," she said without preamble. "I am authorized to discuss terms for halting the Judgment Protocol currently targeting your civilization." Dreth straightened. "You can stop this attack." "Potentially," Chen answered, "but it would require significant concessions from the Vorith Empire." "Name them," Dreth said immediately. "Complete withdrawal from all conquered systems, recognition of independence for all subjugated worlds, demilitarized zones along your borders, and reparations to the worlds you've damaged, including Meridian." Dreth's claws dug into his armrests. "You demand our complete surrender." "I offer your civilization's survival," Chen corrected. "The alternative is already being prepared. You have 3 hours to consult with your leadership and provide an answer." After the transmission ended, Vex approached his captain. "Sir, these terms would end our expansion. The Emperor will never." "The Emperor isn't watching his civilization being targeted for extinction," Dreth interrupted. "Prepare a secure transmission to the Imperial Palace. They need to understand exactly what we're facing." Dr. Rostov worked feverishly at the command console aboard the Earth dreadnought Inexorable Justice, his ancient authorization codes gradually giving him access to systems that had operated autonomously for centuries. "The targeting sequence is at 70% completion," he reported to Colonel Chen as she returned from her meeting with the Meridian Council. "If the Vorith accept our terms, I believe I can halt the protocol before weapon deployment." Chen nodded grimly. "And if they refuse?" Rostov's aged hands paused over the interface. "Then 300 years ago, humanity created weapons that will now commit genocide in our name, while we watch helplessly." "There must be another option," Chen insisted. A junior officer interrupted them. "Colonel, we're receiving a transmission from the Vorith Command." Captain Dreth appeared on screen, his reptilian features rigid with controlled fury. "The Imperial Council has reviewed your terms. They are acceptable, with conditions regarding the implementation timeline." Chen exhaled slowly. "Send the details to my staff. In the meantime, I need your forces to begin immediate withdrawal from Meridian space as a show of good faith." "Already underway," Dreth confirmed stiffly. "Will you now halt your attack preparations?" Chen looked to Rostov, who nodded and entered a final sequence. Throughout the massive dreadnought fleet, weapon systems powered down, targeting computers reset, and launch preparations ceased. "It is done," Chen confirmed. "We will establish diplomatic channels for formalizing the peace process. Earth representatives will oversee the withdrawal from conquered territories." After the transmission ended, Rostov leaned back in his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 87 years. "We've awakened something that should have remained dormant, Colonel," he said quietly. "These war machines, the automated protocols, they were sealed away for good reason." Chen watched through the viewport as the massive dreadnoughts reconfigured from battle formation to patrol stance. "What do we do now? We can't simply put them back to sleep and pretend this never happened." "No," Rostov agreed. "Earth has announced its return to galactic affairs in the most dramatic way possible. Every civilization within 1,000 light-years now knows about our capabilities. And our restraint," Chen added firmly. "We had the power to eradicate the Vorith completely, but chose negotiation instead. That distinction matters." 6 months later, Commander Lyra stood with Elder Soren on the newly reconstructed observation platform overlooking Meridian's central settlement. The rebuilding was well underway, with Earth engineering teams working alongside Meridian architects to restore what had been destroyed. "The Earth Embassy opens tomorrow," Soren noted, watching a shuttle descend toward the diplomatic complex. 300 years of isolation ended because of our distress call. "Do you regret activating the beacon?" Lyra asked. Soren considered the question carefully. "No. The Vorith would have stripped our world bare, just as they did to 17 others. Now those worlds are being liberated, their peoples allowed to determine their own futures again." "At what cost, though?" Lyra pressed. "Earth's war machines nearly committed genocide, and now they patrol our skies again, with humans commanding them this time," Soren pointed out. "That makes all the difference. The machines follow their programming without moral consideration. The humans chose mercy even when victory was assured." Below them, Colonel Chen, now Ambassador Chen, emerged from the shuttle, accompanied by Dr. Rostov. The human delegation moved toward the new embassy building, where representatives from a dozen formerly conquered worlds waited to discuss the new security framework. "The old stories were right about Earth's war machines," Soren said softly. "But they left out the most important part about humans themselves." "What's that?" Lyra asked. "That their greatest strength isn't the weapons they build," the elder replied, watching as Chen greeted the assembled representatives with respectful gestures learned from each culture, but their capacity to choose when not to use them. In orbit above them, the Earth ships continued their silent patrol, a promise both of protection and restraint. Awakened guardians whose very presence ensured peace through the memory of what they could do and the knowledge of what they had chosen not to.